So I'm going to give you a one-time offer. Right now, take all the money that you have in your pocket, in your wallet, and if you put them in the plates as they go by, we'll skip the sermon. We'll go straight to the Eucharist. You can be home. Okay, so there we got someone who's willing. So maybe you're thinking, what is getting into him, or Timmy's crazy, and I get that. Let me ask you to reserve judgment for just a little while longer. So today we are celebrating the feast day of St. Francis. If you didn't know that, then you're probably wondering, what was that procession that just happened? And if you're anything like me, if you know anything about St. Francis at all, then that procession probably didn't surprise you. I imagine you've seen those sort of serene St. Francis statues that sometimes are placed in our gardens for birds to land on. We have one at home. Does anyone else have one of those in their gardens? Yeah, a few of you do. Or maybe you're here also with your pets waiting for a blessing. I know my wife is outside there with our 2 dogs, and sweetie, if you can hear me, I'll go fast so that they don't pull your arms out, okay? So that's all good. Maybe you're here for that as well. But I want to suggest that that's only part of Francis's story. And while it's one way to celebrate Francis, I want to offer us to consider his wider story and to consider perhaps a wider celebration. Let me get us all on the same page about this Francis character. So he was born in the late 12th century, and his birth name was Giovanni di Pietro di Bernardone. I can't believe I got that out. His father was a wealthy silk merchant, and not surprisingly, but sadly, little's known about his mother except that she was French and came from sort of a noble family. Francis apparently enjoyed all the wealth that his parents offered him and lived a kind of a wild, privileged life in his early adulthood. He liked to hang out with the street poets and the troubadours, and well, we know how rowdy the musicians can be, right? So Francis enjoyed all of that. At the age of 20, he joins the army. He goes off on his first deployment to Perugia, and not long after being deployed, he's arrested, he's held captive, and apparently he falls ill. Scholars suggest that this was the moment that Francis began sort of a spiritual awakening. His dad comes to pay ransom and to bring him home. And so Francis is released from captivity and goes home and actually goes back to his kind of wild life. About 5 years later, he signs up with the army again, and off he goes. This time, though, he kind of hears a vision of sorts. And he leaves the army. He goes wandering in the wilderness, and he's praying to God. And he hears a voice which he believes is God telling him, Francis, change your life. So he goes home, then he goes to Rome. He hangs out this time with the poor and the beggars on the street. And then he goes into the mountains, and it's there that he believes that God is calling him to repair the chapel of San Damiano. So this is where things get a little dicey. Francis goes back to his father's home. He steals his silk, sells it on the black market, and then takes the money to the chapel of San Damiano. As you can imagine, this kind of sours the relationship with his dad and sends Francis in hiding. His dad eventually finds him in a cave, drags him back back to the village, right there in the town square, and before the officials and the bishop, his dad says, I want you to punish him. He should renounce all his wealth for the disrespect that he has shown me. And Francis, and I'm not making this up, Francis, as a response in the town square, strips off all his clothing and is standing there butt naked and says, fine, I'll have no more of your wealth. The story doesn't say anything about whether the bishop offered Francis a cloak to cover up. But here's what we know. After that, Francis leaves and he wanders and he prays, praying for God to show him a way forward. He's in a chapel and he hears the gospel story from Matthew where Jesus commissions his disciples, tells them to go out and proclaim that the kingdom of God has come near. And so he says, all right, that's what I'm going to do. Within a year, Francis has 11 followers, and they've taken up residence in a previously abandoned farmhouse. And it's there in that farmhouse that Francis pens the first version of his rule of life. I did a search, and so the estimation is that today there are somewhere around the globe in the neighborhood of 500,000 Franciscans. 500,000 who have adopted this rule of life, 35,000 Franciscan friars, 65,000 Franciscan nuns who live a cloistered life, and, get this, 400,000 lay people who are called secular Franciscans, all living by this rule of life. Now, I want to share with you just some of those rules. Secular Franciscans should devote themselves to careful reading of the gospel, going from gospel to life and from life to gospel. Secular Franciscans should let prayer and contemplation be the soul of all they are and all they do. Secular Franciscans should seek a proper spirit of detachment from temporal goods by simplifying their material needs and be mindful that according to the gospel, they are stewards of the goods received for the benefit of God's children. Secular Franciscans, with a gentle and courteous spirit, should accept all people as a gift of the Lord and an image of Christ. Secular Franciscans, individually and collectively, should be in the forefront in promoting justice by the testimony of their human lives and their courageous initiatives, especially in the field of public life. They should make definite choices in harmony with their faith. Here's the last one. Mindful that they are bearers of peace, which must be built up unceasingly, they should seek out ways of unity and harmony through dialogue, trusting in the presence of the divine seeds in everyone and in the transforming power of love and pardon. Those are just a few of the rules. You sure you want to celebrate St. Francis Day? I don't know about you, but me, they sound pretty demanding, right? And so I can get if we want to just domesticate Francis by tending to the part of his story that encourages us to bring our sweet pets here. But I hope that we'll think about Francis's full story. Because I think his rules of life have something to say to us. I think his rules of life have something to say about the challenges around our globe. Challenges where 10% of the people possess 3/4 of the global wealth. Where 50% of the population possesses only 2% of global wealth. Challenges where we're looking at a year that might be the hottest in record. And where we should be very clear that those who will suffer the most from this climate change are those who are already impoverished and living on the margins. Challenges such as the fact that just in 2023, there were over 350 million people living with food insecurities. I think Francis's rule of life has something to say to those challenges. Do you still want to consider St. Francis? I hope the answer is yes, because the challenges just here in our own country could benefit from it if we do. Where we are still wrestling to honor the full humanity in one another, as evidenced in the fact that 26 states now have passed laws that block gender-affirming treatment. Despite the fact that has resulted in a spike of suicide amongst those who are seeking that treatment. I think that Francis has something to say to us in this country as we are continuing to wrestle with othering one another, as opposed to seeing that seed of Christ is in each and every person. I say this somewhat parenthetically now, but you hear more later. Just last week, Chase and Steve Williams and Susan and I attended a conference on truth-telling and reparations, where we heard anew about the heartbreaking and the generational impact of that sin of othering. I think Francis's rules of life have something to say to us about that. Do we want to celebrate St. Francis Day? I hope the answer is yes, because I think St. Francis's rule of life, they have something to say about the challenges we are facing even right here at All Saints. I think they have something to say to us as we struggle to sit with the heartache that some are feeling, as we struggle to find the words to offer apologies, to make amends, and to also extend forgiveness, as we struggle to trust one another in certain places, as we wonder about people's intentions, as we struggle to come to a more fulsome representation of who and how we are, all of us, God's beloved children, as we struggle to widen the ground that we might all stand upon to celebrate the joys of life. I think Francis's rules of life have something to say to us right here, right now at All Saints Church. Do you want to celebrate St. Francis Day? Maybe some of you are thinking, man, I should have just taken my money and put it in the plate and run. And I should say, if you want to, at the collection, feel free, by the way. But I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't. Because I want us to celebrate the fullness of St. Francis Day. I'm looking forward to blessing those animals that are out there. I really am. But if we want to celebrate the fullness of his day and the totality of his legacy and his story, then we need to consider these rules and how they speak into our life and our moment right here and right now. Do you want to celebrate St. Francis Day? If you're interested, when you walk out of here, the ushers at both doors have a single sheet that captures the rules that I just read a few moments ago. I invite you to take it home. Read over it, pray on it, consider it. See what the Spirit says to you about it. Consider how it might move you not only into celebrating St. Francis Day, but to mirroring his life each and every day. We'll bless the dogs, but consider how might you be a blessing. Consider how your life might be a blessing to others. And if this seems daunting, If you're not sure where to start, if you're thinking, oh, that's just too big and too impossible, well then, let me share with you one of the many quotes attributed to St. Francis. St. Francis, who reportedly said, "Start by doing what is necessary, then what is possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible." Amen.